They called it the Great Silence. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had ruled through diplomacy, trade agreements, and carefully orchestrated negotiations. Species rose and fell based on their ability to talk, to compromise, to find middle ground in the endless dance of interstellar politics. Then, humanity arrived. The Council sent their best diplomats, expecting another species eager to find their place in the cosmic hierarchy. They prepared elaborate welcome ceremonies, drafted trade proposals, and scheduled months of negotiations to determine humanity's role in their carefully balanced civilization. Humanity's response was a single message, broadcast across every council frequency: we don't negotiate with slavers. What followed wasn't a war in any sense the galaxy understood. Wars had rules, ceasefires, surrender terms. Wars ended with treaties and handshakes and promises of peace. This was something else entirely. This was humanity showing a galaxy of talkers what happened when you met a species that believed in only one form of diplomacy: overwhelming force applied with surgical precision until the problem ceased to exist. The galaxy had spent millennia perfecting the art of conversation. Humanity had spent that same time perfecting the art of war. The Council would learn, too late, that some species don't negotiate. Some species just win. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the Galactic Council's Grand Fleet assemble in the Kepler 442 system. 1,200 ships from 47 different species, all arranged in the traditional diplomatic formation that had kept peace for 3 centuries. It was beautiful, in its way, like watching a ballet performed by giants. "Admiral, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," Communications Officer Torres reported. "Standard diplomatic protocols. They want to establish a neutral meeting ground for negotiations." Chen nodded, her eyes never leaving the display. The Council fleet was impressive by any measure except the one that mattered. She had studied their ships, their tactics, their entire military doctrine for the past 18 months since humanity's first contact with the galaxy. They were builders, negotiators, traders. They had turned war into an art form of measured responses and calculated escalations, all designed to bring both sides to the negotiating table. They had never encountered a species that preferred to flip the table entirely. "Signal the fleet," Chen ordered. "Begin Operation Tabula Rasa." The human fleet was smaller by half, but that had never been the point. 600 ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, not the flowering pattern favored by Council tacticians, but in a wall of steel and fury that spoke of only one intention. The Prometheus led from the center, flanked by the massive dreadnoughts Thermopylae and Stalingrad. Behind them came the carrier groups, bristling with fighters that moved like angry hornets around their mobile hives. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Council flagship," Torres announced. "It's High Counselor Vextar of the Serenity Collective." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, ethereal being with translucent blue skin and large, peaceful eyes. Vextar was old even by his species standards, having mediated conflicts across the galaxy for over 200 years. His reputation for finding peaceful solutions was legendary. "Admiral Chen," Vextar began, his voice carrying the musical quality that made the Serenity Collective such effective diplomats. "I greet you in the name of peace and mutual understanding. We have gathered here today to discuss humanity's integration into the Galactic Council. Surely we can find common ground that benefits all parties." Chen studied the alien's face for a moment, noting the genuine hope in those ancient eyes. It almost made her feel sorry for him. "Almost." "High Counselor," she replied, her voice carrying none of the ceremonial warmth expected in diplomatic exchanges. "Before we begin any discussions, I need you to answer one simple question. Are there currently humans being held as slaves anywhere in Council space?" Vextar's expression shifted slightly, a brief flicker of discomfort crossing his features. "Admiral, the term slavery is rather crude. The Council recognizes various forms of indentured service, debt bondage, and voluntary servitude that serve important economic and social functions across our diverse civilizations. These arrangements are strictly regulated and—" "So that's a yes," Chen interrupted, her tone growing colder. "Humans are being held as slaves. The 1,700 humans captured during the unfortunate misunderstanding at the Rigel colonies are currently classified as prisoners of war pending diplomatic resolution, Vextar explained carefully. They are being treated according to the Third Geneva Protocols of Interstellar Conflict, with full rights and protections. In slave markets on Hethra Prime, Zygon 7, and New Carthage, Chen finished. Where they're being sold to the highest bidders while you debate the finer points of diplomatic terminology. The silence that followed stretched across space between the two fleets. Vextar's advisors could be seen whispering urgently in the background, their universal translators creating a low susurrus of concern. "Admiral," Vextar said finally, "these matters require delicate handling. The species involved have ancient rites and traditional practices that cannot simply be dismissed. With proper negotiation, we can establish a framework for the gradual transition of these individuals to full citizen status. The process will take time, perhaps several years, but..." "High Counselor," Chen interrupted again, her voice now carrying the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. "Let me make humanity's position clear. We want our people back. All of them. Today. Any species, government, or individual currently holding humans against their will has exactly 1 hour to release them and arrange for immediate transport to the nearest human-controlled system." Vextar's peaceful demeanor cracked slightly. "Admiral, surely you understand that such demands cannot be met instantly. The logistics alone would require months of coordination. The legal frameworks, the compensation arrangements, the cultural sensitivities involved." 1 hour, Chen repeated. "After that, we stop talking and start acting." The Council fleet began to shift formation, their ships moving into the classic defensive posture that had intimidated so many species into submission over the centuries. It was a beautiful display of coordination, with vessels of every conceivable design working in harmony to present an overwhelming show of force. Chen almost smiled. They still didn't understand. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "enemy fleet is assuming battle formation. Estimated firepower advantage, 12-1 in their favor." "Confirmed," Chen replied. "Execute Phase 2. The space around the human fleet suddenly came alive with activity. Hundreds of small objects detached from the larger ships, moving too fast for the Council's sensors to track individually. They spread out like a virus through space, each one no larger than a fighter but carrying payloads that made size irrelevant. "What are those devices?" Vextar demanded, his composure finally beginning to crack. "Nanite deployment platforms," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Each one carries approximately 10 billion self-replicating constructor bots programmed with one very specific task." On the tactical display, the Council fleet was slowly being surrounded by a cloud of invisible death. The nanites were already beginning their work, too small to be detected by conventional sensors but numerous enough to strip a dreadnought down to its component atoms in under an hour. "This is an act of war," Vextar protested. "The Council will not stand for such aggression. We have maintained peace for 300 years through reasoned dialogue and mutual respect." "High Counselor," Chen said, her voice carrying a patience that somehow made her words more terrifying than any shout, "you've maintained peace by ensuring that no one species ever became strong enough to challenge the system. You've kept order by making sure that conflicts were always resolved in favor of whoever could negotiate better, not who was right." The first Council ship began to show signs of distress as its outer hull started to dissolve. Warning lights flashed across its bridge, and emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels. "But humanity doesn't negotiate with slavers," Chen continued. "We don't debate the ethics of freedom with people who profit from suffering. We don't seek middle ground with those who trade in human lives." Ship after ship in the Council fleet began to experience critical system failures. Not all at once, but in a carefully orchestrated sequence that demonstrated the precision of human planning. The nanites weren't designed to kill, not yet. They were programmed to disable, to demonstrate that humanity could reach out and touch any ship in the galaxy whenever they chose. "You want to know what humanity learned during our wars?" Chen asked, watching as the mighty Council fleet transformed into a collection of drifting hulks. "We learned that sometimes the only way to peace is through victory. complete, total, and absolute victory over those who threaten everything we hold dear. The bridge of the Prometheus was silent except for the quiet hum of efficiently functioning systems. Around them, the most powerful fleet in galactic history was slowly coming apart, undone by enemies too small to see but too numerous to stop. 23 minutes remaining, Torres reported quietly. Vexstar appeared on screen again, his ethereal features now marked by something the galaxy hadn't seen from the Serenity Collective in 2 centuries: desperation. "Admiral, please," he pleaded. "Surely we can find another way. The species holding your people are acting independently. The Council itself has no direct control over their internal affairs. If you give us time, we can apply pressure through economic sanctions, trade restrictions." 22 minutes, Chen replied. The truth was, humanity had never intended to negotiate. From the moment they learned that their people were being sold like livestock in markets across Council space, there had been only one acceptable outcome. The fleet, the demonstrations, even this conversation, were all just the opening moves in a campaign that had been planned down to the smallest detail. Earth's leadership had studied every species in the Council, every trade route, every military installation, every economic choke point. They knew which worlds could be isolated with the destruction of 3 specific jump gates. They knew which species would surrender immediately if their homeworlds were threatened, and which would fight to the last soldier. Most importantly, they knew that the Council's greatest strength, its diversity, was also its greatest weakness. "Admiral," the tactical officer reported, "we're receiving surrender broadcasts from 43 Council vessels. The remaining ships are attempting to withdraw, but our nanites have compromised their jump drives." Chen nodded. Phase 2 was complete ahead of schedule. Time to begin Phase 3. "Open a channel to all Council worlds," she ordered. "Full spectrum broadcast, emergency priority." When the channel opened, Chen stood straighter, letting every species in the galaxy see exactly what humanity looked like when it went to war. "Attention all members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the vastness of space. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. 18 hours ago, we demanded the immediate release of all humans being held in slavery across your territories. Your response was to send a fleet to threaten us into submission." The tactical display showed the aftermath of the brief encounter. The Council fleet, pride of 47 civilizations, floated helpless in space. Not destroyed, humanity wasn't interested in unnecessary killing, but completely neutralized. "We are not interested in your justifications, your cultural traditions, or your economic concerns," Chen continued. "We are interested in results. Every human currently held against their will in Council space will be returned to us within 72 hours, or we will come and take them ourselves." She paused, letting the implications sink in across 1,000 worlds. "And, when we come, we won't be interested in talking." The Hethera slave markets had operated for over 4,000 years, serving as the premier destination for exotic sentient beings across the galaxy. The marble halls of New Babylon echoed with the sounds of a dozen languages as buyers and sellers conducted their business with the refined elegance that came from centuries of tradition. Marcus Webb crouched in the cramped holding cell beneath the auction floor, his hands clenched into fists as he listened to the auctioneer describing him to potential buyers. The translator collar around his neck forced him to understand every degrading word. "Lot 47, the Hetheran auctioneer announced with practiced flair, a prime specimen of the species recently catalogued as human. Note the excellent muscle definition, the adaptive intelligence scores, and the remarkable durability. This particular unit has shown exceptional resistance to standard compliance methods, making it ideal for hazardous industrial work or extreme environment operations." Webb closed his eyes, remembering the day the Council ships had appeared over Rigel Colony. They had called it a peaceful intervention to prevent unauthorized expansion into contested territories. The fighting had lasted 6 hours. The aftermath had lasted 18 months. "Current bid stands at 40,000 credits, the auctioneer continued. "Do I hear 45? Remember, humans are the first new slave species to be classified in over 2 centuries. This is a unique investment opportunity." A new voice joined the bidding, its synthetic tones indicating an artificial intelligence buyer. 50,000. This unit will be suitable for deep space mining operations in the Kepler void. Webb's jaw tightened. He had been a colonial administrator, responsible for the welfare of 12,000 settlers. Now he was being sold like cattle to work in conditions that would kill him within a year. The cell door opened with a soft hiss, and a Hetheran guard entered. The reptilian being moved with the casual arrogance of someone who had never doubted their place in the galactic hierarchy. "Time for display, human," the guard said, activating a pain compliance device. "Try not to embarrass yourself. The buyers prefer their property to show some dignity." Webb stood slowly, his muscles aching from months of confinement. As they led him toward the auction stage, he caught sight of other humans in nearby cells. Sarah Kim from the Agricultural Division. Dr. Peterson from the Medical Center. Captain Morrison, who had held the spaceport until the last transport escaped. All of them were scheduled for sale today. The auction hall was a testament to Hetheran wealth and sophistication. Crystalline chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across walls decorated with art from 100 conquered worlds. The buyers sat in comfortable alcoves, protected from the unpleasant realities of their purchases by distance and tradition. Webb was pushed onto the display platform, the spotlights making him squint as he faced the assembled crowd. The auctioneer continued his sales pitch, pointing out Webb's various attributes like he was livestock being evaluated for breeding. "Note the specimen's excellent physical condition despite extended captivity," the Hetheran noted approvingly. "Humans appear to maintain their strength even under adverse conditions, making them ideal for long-term investments." The bidding resumed, with the price climbing steadily toward 60,000 credits. Webb forced himself to stand straight, refusing to give these creatures the satisfaction of seeing him broken. If he was going to be sold, he would at least maintain his dignity. That's when the lights went out. Emergency illumination kicked in a moment later, bathing the hall in red light that made everything look like a scene from hell. Alarm sirens began wailing throughout the complex, and Webb could hear the sound of running feet as security forces mobilized. "Ladies and gentlemen," a calm voice announced over the facility's communication system, "please remain in your seats. We are experiencing a minor technical difficulty that will be resolved momentarily." But Webb could see the truth in the faces of the buyers. This wasn't a technical difficulty. This was fear, pure and simple, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. The main doors to the auction hall burst open, and figures in black combat armor poured in with military precision. Their movements were smooth and coordinated, covering angles and securing positions with the efficiency of a force that had done this countless times before. Webb's heart leaped as he recognized the insignia on their armor. The Eagle and Stars of the United Earth Space Command. The lead figure removed their helmet, revealing a woman with short brown hair and cold blue eyes. She scanned the auction hall with the clinical detachment of a surgeon examining a tumor. "I am Colonel Janet Rodriguez of the Earth Liberation Force," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the suddenly silent hall. "This facility has been designated a target for immediate liberation. All humans held here will be transferred to our custody within the next 10 minutes. The Hetheran auctioneer, a being who had never been challenged in his own establishment, drew himself up to his full height. "This is outrageous. You have no authority here. The Hetheran Consortium operates under full council charter. These slaves are legally acquired property, and we demand that you respect our sovereign rights." Rodriguez turned to look at the alien, her expression never changing. "Sir, you have 3 options. You can cooperate with our liberation efforts and allow us to remove our people peacefully. You can resist and be neutralized as a threat to mission objectives. Or you can run and be hunted down later." She paused for a moment, checking her chronometer with casual precision. "You have 30 seconds to decide." The auction hall erupted into chaos as buyers scrambled for the exits, abandoning their sophisticated facades in the face of immediate danger. But Webb noticed that none of them made it to the doors. Earth forces had positioned themselves at every exit, and anyone who tried to leave was politely but firmly directed back to their seats. "Colonel," one of the soldiers reported, "we've located the main holding areas. Confirmed presence of 143 human prisoners in various stages of processing. Excellent, Rodriguez replied. She turned back to the auctioneer, who was still sputtering about legal protocols and diplomatic immunity. Your 30 seconds are up. What's your decision? The Hetheron scales shifted from their normal green to a pale yellow that Webb recognized as a fear response. You cannot do this. The Council will demand satisfaction. This is an act of war against a sovereign member state. Sir, Rodriguez said patiently, we are not at war with the Hetheron Consortium. We are conducting a police action against criminals engaged in human trafficking. If you choose to resist that action, you will be treated as an armed criminal, not a prisoner of war. She gestured to one of her soldiers, who stepped forward with a device that looked like a modified scanner. This is a neural disruptor. One shot will leave you conscious but completely paralyzed for approximately 6 hours. You'll be aware of everything happening around you, but unable to move or speak. We find it quite effective for dealing with uncooperative subjects. The Hetheron's color shifted to an even paler shade of yellow. This is barbaric. Civilized species resolve conflicts through negotiation. I'm not here to negotiate, Rodriguez replied. I'm here to collect stolen property and return it to its rightful place. Whether that happens with your cooperation or over your paralyzed body is entirely up to you. Webb watched the exchange with growing amazement. These weren't diplomats or politicians. These were soldiers, and they had come here with only one objective, to take him and his fellow humans home. The Hetheron finally wilted under Rodriguez's unwavering stare. The release codes are in the security office. 3rd level, Section 7. Thank you for your cooperation, Rodriguez said politely. She turned to her team. Alpha Squad, secure the holding areas. Bravo Squad, escort the civilians to the extraction point. Charlie Squad, download everything from their databases. I want every record of human trafficking in Council space. As the soldiers moved with practiced efficiency to carry out their orders, Rodriguez walked over to Webb. She pulled a small device from her belt and aimed it at the collar around his neck. The restraint device fell away with a soft click. Marcus Webb, Colonial Administrator, Rigel 7, she asked. Yes, ma'am, Webb replied, his voice hoarse from disuse. Colonel Rodriguez, Earth Liberation Force, she said, extending her hand. We're here to take you home. Webb gripped her hand tightly, afraid that this might all be some kind of hallucination brought on by months of captivity. How? How did you find us? Rodriguez smiled for the first time since entering the hall. Administrator, Earth has been tracking every human taken from Rigel Colony. We know where each of you ended up, who bought you, and what they plan to do with you. This is just the first stop on a very long list. Around them, the liberation was proceeding with clockwork precision. Human prisoners were being processed through medical scanners, given clean clothes, and prepared for transport. The auction hall's buyers sat in stunned silence, their sophisticated worldview crumbling as they realized that humanity didn't play by the rules they had spent centuries perfecting. What about the Council? Webb asked. Won't they retaliate? Rodriguez's smile turned cold. Administrator, the Council had their chance to return our people through diplomacy. They chose to protect slavers instead. Now they get to deal with the consequences. She activated a communication device on her wrist. Liberation Command, this is Rodriguez. Package secured. 143 souls ready for extraction. Request immediate pickup for Phase 2 operations. The response came immediately. Rodriguez, this is Admiral Chen aboard the Prometheus. Outstanding work, Colonel. Extraction ships are en route. How did our hosts react to the visit? About as expected, Admiral, Rodriguez replied. They're still trying to figure out whether to file a diplomatic protest or call for help. I don't think it's occurred to them yet that there's no one left to call. Webb looked around the auction hall, taking in the sight of his fellow humans being treated like people instead of property for the first time in 18 months. But something in Rodriguez's voice caught his attention. Colonel, he said carefully, what do you mean, Phase 2 operations? Rodriguez checked her chronometer again. Administrator, this facility was just one of 47 raid targets scheduled for today. Right about now, liberation forces are hitting every major slave market in Council space simultaneously. By this time tomorrow, every human held in captivity will be free. She paused, her expression growing more serious. But that's just the beginning. Earth isn't interested in just getting our people back. We're interested in making sure this never happens again to anyone. The extraction ships arrived exactly on schedule, sleek Earth vessels that materialized out of hyperspace with predatory grace. Webb watched through the facility's windows as dozens of similar ships appeared around other buildings in the city, each one disgorging teams of liberation forces. The entire galaxy is about to learn something very important about humanity, Rodriguez said as they prepared to board the transport. We don't forget. We don't forgive. And we never, ever leave our people behind. As the transport lifted off from the Hetheran surface, Webb got his first look at the broader operation. The entire city was under Earth control, with liberation forces moving through the streets in perfect coordination. Above them, human warships maintained position in orbit, their weapons trained on any Hetheran vessel that might consider interference. It wasn't an invasion. It was something far more thorough. It was a demonstration that humanity could reach anywhere in the galaxy and take whatever it wanted, whenever it chose to do so. The Council was about to learn that some species didn't negotiate. Some species just acted. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime had hosted thousands of diplomatic sessions over the past 3 centuries, but never one like this. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their assigned seats, their usual confident demeanor replaced by something that hadn't been seen in these halls for generations: genuine fear. High Counselor Vextar stood at the central podium, his translucent blue skin noticeably paler than usual. Behind him, holographic displays showed the devastating scope of what human media had dubbed Liberation Day. 47 simultaneous raids. Every major slave market in Council space hit within the same 6-hour window. Not a single human left in captivity anywhere in the galaxy. Honored delegates, Vextar began, his musical voice lacking its usual confidence, we face an unprecedented crisis. The human species has demonstrated a complete disregard for established diplomatic protocols, international law, and the fundamental principles upon which our civilization is based. Counselor Thekvar of the Regelian Trade Syndicate raised one of his 4 arms. The insectoid being's compound eyes glittered with barely contained rage. High Counselor, with respect, this goes far beyond diplomatic irregularities. These humans have committed acts of piracy, terrorism, and outright warfare against sovereign member states. They have violated our space, stolen our property, and destroyed billions of credits worth of legitimate business infrastructure. Legitimate business, came a new voice from the gallery, cutting through the chamber like a blade. Every head turned to see Admiral Sarachan walking down the central aisle, flanked by 2 human officers in dress uniform. She had not been invited to this session. She had not requested permission to speak. She had simply appeared, as if the most secure facility in the galaxy presented no obstacle to her presence. Admiral Chen, Vextar said, his voice carrying a mixture of surprise and apprehension, this is a closed session of the Galactic Council. Humans have not yet been granted membership or observer status. Chen reached the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled delegates with the same expression she had worn while watching their fleet dissolve in space. High Counselor, I'm not here as a diplomat. I'm here as a representative of humanity's position regarding your legitimate business practices. She activated a small device, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. Images of humans in chains, packed into cargo holds, being examined by buyers like livestock. The delegates shifted uncomfortably as they were forced to confront the reality behind their careful euphemisms. These are some of our people, Chen continued, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast chamber. Citizens of Earth, colonists from Rigel, explorers from the Kepler missions. Human beings reduced to property by species that claim to represent the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Counselor Zethara of the Synthetic Collective spoke up, her artificial voice perfectly modulated for diplomatic discourse. Admiral, while the plight of your people is regrettable, You must understand that slavery is a complex economic and social institution that has existed for millennia. Many species depend on various forms of bonded labor for their economic stability. Sudden disruption of these systems could cause widespread hardship and social upheaval. Chen turned to face the AI representative, her expression never changing. Counselor, are you suggesting that humanity should have left our people in chains to protect the economic interests of their owners? I am suggesting that there are established procedures for addressing such concerns, Zathara replied. Gradual emancipation programs, economic transition assistance, cultural sensitivity protocols. The proper diplomatic channels exist for a reason. The proper diplomatic channels, Chen repeated slowly, that would have taken decades to implement while our people died in captivity. She gestured to the displays around the chamber. Let me share some data we collected during our liberation operations. The average life expectancy of a human slave in council space is 14 months. The survival rate for humans assigned to deep space mining operations is 12%. The psychological trauma inflicted by your complex economic institution leaves 93% of survivors with permanent mental damage. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Chen continued, her voice growing colder with each word. Your diplomatic channels would have saved approximately 15% of our people. The other 85% would have died while you debated the finer points of economic transition policies. Counselor Mordak of the Hegemony Alliance, a massive warrior species that had dominated their sector for 2,000 years, rose to his full intimidating height. Human, your species shows dangerous arrogance. The Council maintains order through strength, yes, but also through wisdom accumulated over millennia. You are children playing with weapons you do not understand, threatening forces beyond your comprehension. Chen looked up at the towering alien without a trace of intimidation. Counselor Mordak, your people have built an impressive empire through conquest and domination. Your military reputation spans the galaxy. Your warriors are legendary for their skill and ferocity. Mordak's chest swelled with pride at the recognition. Which makes what happened to your home fleet 3 hours ago all the more remarkable, Chen continued. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as a new holographic display appeared, showing the wreckage of the hegemony's proudest military achievement. The Eternal Conquest, flagship of their home defense force, floated dead in space alongside 200 other vessels. What did you do? Mordak demanded, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. We demonstrated the difference between warriors who fight for glory and soldiers who fight for survival, Chen replied. Your fleet was designed to intimidate. Ours was designed to kill. The engagement lasted 47 minutes. Vextar stepped forward, his diplomatic composure finally cracking completely. Admiral, this is madness. You cannot simply attack member worlds without provocation. The Treaty of Nexus Prime specifically prohibits military action against civilian populations. High Counselor, Chen said, turning back to face him, we haven't attacked any civilian populations. We've targeted military assets belonging to species that participated in human trafficking. The Hegemony Alliance had 1,700 humans scheduled for execution in their gladiator arenas. The Zygon Confederacy was conducting medical experiments on human subjects. The Hetheran Consortium was breeding humans for specialized labor markets. She paused, letting the accusations hang in the air. Every species that profited from human suffering has had their military capability eliminated. Every world that hosted slave markets has been quarantined. Every government that refused to cooperate with our liberation efforts has found their infrastructure mysteriously developing critical malfunctions. The displays around the chamber showed the scope of human retaliation. Trade routes disrupted by strategically placed minefields. Communication networks suffering from cascading system failures. Military installations going dark as their power grids collapsed from untraceable cyber attacks. This is impossible, whispered Counselor Vextar. No single species could coordinate operations on this scale. The logistics alone would require resources and intelligence networks that would take centuries to develop. Chen smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. High Counselor, you're thinking like diplomats. You assume that every action requires committees, debate, and consensus building. You can't imagine a species that makes decisions quickly and implements them immediately. She activated another display, this one showing Earth itself. The blue marble hung in space, looking peaceful and insignificant compared to the great artificial worlds that housed the Council's member species. Earth has been preparing for this day since we first learned that humans were being sold in your markets, Chen continued. Not preparing to negotiate, not preparing to find middle ground, but preparing to end the practice permanently. We spent 2 years mapping every slave route, identifying every market, locating every human held in captivity anywhere in the galaxy. The display zoomed in to show the orbital shipyards around Earth, massive construction facilities that stretched for thousands of kilometers in every direction. We built a war machine specifically designed to fight your kind of war. Not the honorable combat preferred by the hegemony, not the elegant maneuvering favored by the Serenity Collective, but total warfare aimed at achieving specific, non-negotiable objectives. Counselor Thekvar clicked his mandibles in agitation. You speak of war as if it were a simple matter of applying force. The galaxy is vast, the Council's resources are limitless. You may have achieved some tactical victories through surprise, but you cannot sustain this level of aggression indefinitely. Counselor, Chen replied, you're still thinking in terms of traditional warfare. You're imagining fleets and armies and grand campaigns. But we're not fighting that kind of war. She gestured to a new display showing shipping lanes throughout the galaxy. Every species in Council space depends on interstellar trade for survival. Food, raw materials, manufactured goods, all moving constantly through hyperspace routes that have remained stable for centuries. The display began highlighting critical junctions, bottlenecks where multiple trade routes converged. Humanity has identified 137 strategic choke points that, if simultaneously disrupted, would cripple galactic commerce within weeks. We've positioned assets at every single one. You're threatening to starve entire worlds, Vexstar said, his voice barely above a whisper. We're threatening to end business as usual, Chen corrected. No species will starve if they comply with our demands. But any government that continues to permit human trafficking, any corporation that profits from slave labor, any individual who owns human beings will find their access to galactic commerce permanently severed. She turned to address the entire chamber, her voice carrying the absolute certainty of someone who held all the cards. The age of negotiation is over. The age of compromise has ended. Slavery is now extinct throughout Council space, not because you chose to end it, but because humanity has made it impossible to continue. Counselor Zethara's synthetic voice carried a note of something that might have been admiration. Admiral, assuming your threats are credible, what happens next? You cannot maintain military pressure indefinitely. Eventually, you will need to establish some form of permanent relationship with the galactic community. Chen nodded approvingly. An excellent question, Counselor. Humanity is prepared to establish formal diplomatic relations with any species willing to meet 3 simple conditions. The displays around the chamber changed to show a document with the Earth seal at the top. First, complete abolition of slavery in all its forms throughout your territory. Second, full cooperation with human investigators seeking to locate and prosecute individuals involved in human trafficking. Third, payment of reparations to human survivors and the families of those who died in captivity. And if we refuse? Mordak growled. Chen's smile returned, but there was no warmth in it. Then, you remain under economic quarantine until you change your minds. Your ships don't travel through hyperspace. Your goods don't reach their destinations. Your communications networks experience regular maintenance issues. Your military assets develop mysterious technical problems. She paused, letting the implications sink in. We're not interested in conquering anyone, Counselor. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy or imposing our will on other species. We're only interested in ensuring that no human being is ever again reduced to property by people who call themselves civilized. The chamber fell silent as the delegates contemplated their choices. They had expected to deal with another species seeking their place in the established order. Instead, they had encountered something unprecedented, a species that rejected the established order entirely and, possessed the power to enforce their rejection. High Counselor Vextar finally spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of centuries of diplomatic tradition crumbling around him. Admiral, if humanity agrees to formal negotiations regarding the implementation of these conditions. High Counselor, Chin interrupted one final time, we're not negotiating. We're informing you of the new reality. You have 30 days to comply with our conditions. After that, any species still permitting slavery in any form will be classified as a hostile power and treated accordingly. She turned and began walking toward the exit, her officers falling into step beside her. At the doorway, she paused and looked back at the assembled delegates. Gentlemen, ladies, and artificial intelligences, she said formally, welcome to the post-diplomatic age. We hope you find it educational. The great doors of the council chamber closed behind her with a soft whisper, leaving 47 species to contemplate a galaxy where talking was no longer enough. Outside, Admiral Chen activated her communication device. All stations, this is Admiral Chen. Phase 3 is complete. Begin implementation of the Pax Humana protocols. The galaxy would learn to live without slaves. One way or another.